moving on to character creation and customization. So fairly simple stuff. Basically, how to create a character, how to customize a character. I'm going to show you a couple tricks on customizing characters and modifying them so that you can do certain things in your project. We're going to talk about that in just a moment here. As always, we are recording this, so if I go too fast or if you miss something, you go over to get a coffee or something and come back and you want to catch up. We are recording this and we'll send you out the live recording later on in an email. Also, in terms of email, we'll also be sending you out a survey. From the survey will be for this webinar. Any suggestions, comments, questions you have for future webinars, feel free to put that in the survey and we'll provide you with a 10% discount for the content store. All right. And we are going to have a Q&A session, as always, at the end of this webinar. So within 10 minutes to the hour, we'll probably quit my live demo, quit my blabbering, and go on to the Q&A section. So any questions you have, you can put those in the Q&A panel of your Zoom webinar panel there, the QA section of your Zoom webinar panel there, and I'll get to those at the end of the webinar. Okay, I think that about covers the introduction, basic stuff for the webinar. I may use the chat window for certain links and stuff, but any questions you have, please put those in the QA window. All right, I'm going to talk about a little briefly. First of all, we have a content store special right now, this weekly special rate. I'm going to put this link in the chat window. So you can see this pack is down from $78 to $5. Now, so it's a little bit late, but this special ends today. So if you want to pick up this buddy pack for $5, feel free to check it out. I'm going to put this link in the chat window for everyone here. Figured out the chat window. Thankfully, from last webinar, it was kind of malfunctioning last webinar, part one of this series here. So if you want to pick this up for $5, you know, why not? You know, $5, it's like a Starbucks coffee or something. Highly recommend checking it out. And yeah, that's about it. So let's go over the outline of this today's webinar here. We are going to talk about G3 character creation and customization. I'm going to show you how to customize the character, how to create a free bone actor as well. Free bone characters are very important characters in Character Creator. And keep in mind that we are going to be sending you the project files for this webinar series as well. So you can take a look at the characters, the free bone characters I created, and sort of deconstruct them from there. And also I'm going to talk about creating a 360 head. We're not going to do it from scratch. There's actually tutorials that go into a lot more detail on that. And the process is fairly repetitive. So what I wanted to avoid in this webinar is I want to avoid, you know, repetitive stuff, because I don't think you guys, I mean, yeah, it is kind of a bummer of a St. Patrick's Day today. Happy St. Patrick's Day, by the way, to everyone. It is sort of a bummer of a St. Patrick's Day with everything closed and everything. Hopefully you all are keeping safe in your homes. I'm kind of going stir crazy myself, being here for 48 hours. Haven't left my apartment in 48 hours. So yeah, so what was I mentioning? Oh yeah, so I'm not going to do any repetitive stuff, even though you guys have all the time in the world. A lot of us do anyways, sitting at home, listening to me blabber on about character customization. But I don't think you want to see stuff repeated over and over again. So I'm just going to kind of show you some of the brief overview of the most important things of 360 head creation. And then we're also going to be talking about just applying template motions really quickly. I'm going to show you how a difference between a root motion and a transform motion. We'll talk about that to round off the webinar. All right, so let's go ahead and get started with the live webinar. Now, if this is your first, if you did work with us for part one, I'm just going to replay the scene here really quickly. We're going to just basically be customizing the characters. This character, Bill, Jim rather, one of those, like, you know, basic names. We're going to be customizing him with a couple of steps here, and I'll show that as we get along further in the webinar here. Let's go ahead and play it for right now.
Jim, you really should take a break from animating. You've been at it for hours.
Hey, Bob. Thanks. Will do.
Well, hello there, Jim.
Hey, After Effects. That's funny. I don't remember buying a dancing monitor. Man, what was in that coffee? Let go of her, you snake.
Oh, help me, Jim.
You'll never take me alive, Jim.
We'll see about that.
Oh, Jim, you saved me. Jim.
All right, so Jim, the big hero. We're going to talk about how to customize Jim a little bit later as we go through this webinar here. And again, just a reminder to put all your questions in the Q&A panel, and we will get to those as we move on through our project. Okay, but I'm going to go ahead and load up the project here. This is going to be the project that we want to load up here in this folder. Project files. We'll load up part 1. So, part 2 rather. We're going to take a look at part 2 in this webinar today. Now, part 2 has an interesting part in it or the second project has an interesting part where the character, you have a kind of a conundrum here that I often get asked about in Cartoon Animator 4, where you have, the character has to be holding something, or you want the character's body behind something, an object in your 2D scene, and you want the hand in front of it, okay? Or the arm or some other body part in front of it, like riding a bicycle or something like that. So in this project, you can see the situation we have here with our character in the back and his hand. So his body is behind the female character and his arm is in front of her. So you're probably wondering, what is this wizardry? How do we do this? Because it's actually not as simple as it seems, unfortunately, but I'll show you how to do that. That's going to be the first little situation we're going to tackle in today's webinar. So I'm going to go ahead and start a new project. We didn't really need to load that up, but I just kind of wanted to show you. So what's going to happen here is we want to throw in both of our characters. I'm going to throw in the actor G3 360. We have our, I'm going to use this content pack here, this Campus Hero content pack. Now, this is the one that I put in the chat window yesterday. If you want, you can just go to the content store and just type in Campus Hero. Maybe we can put a link for that a little bit later on in the webinar if you want to find this character. But we're going to throw in this, badass looking character, Leon, okay? And then we're going to throw in his compatriot here, what's her name again? Eva. All right. So we have Leon here and we have Eva here. Okay. And I'm going to show you the situation that comes up. First of all, when you want to have, Leon behind her, let's just zoom in a little bit. So I'm going to take him and use this little gizmo at the bottom to move him back behind her. All right. So we have he's, holding her hostage. So he's right behind her like this. And if we want to take his arm, we go to the 2D motion key editor here. And what we would do is just take this left forearm here and put our mouse cursor right on the outside of the box to rotate it. But you can see, whoops, okay, so there's a problem here. His arm is going behind the female character. And what we want to do is we want to have it in front of the female character. So this is not as easy as it seems. So we're going to go through a little quick process here. I'm going to show you how to fix that. Okay, so let's close down our 2D key editor, motion key editor right now. And what we're going to do is we're going to take Leon into the composer mode. Now, composer mode is the most important tool to learn about when you're creating and customizing characters, because the composer up here in the top left, this is basically where all the character creation and customization happens. We're going to be going into the composer multiple times throughout the duration of today's webinar. Okay, so let's go ahead and click composer. Make sure your character is selected and then select composer, and that'll take you into composer mode. You can see in the bottom left, right now we are in composer mode. Okay, and what I need to do here is I need to take my character's arm and I need to separate that from his body, okay? Now, it's not as grotesque as it seems. What I'm gonna do is make sure my character is selected. Now, there's a couple ways you can do this. If you have the pipeline version, you'll be able to launch your character directly into Photoshop using this Launch PSD Editor button right here. If you don't have Photoshop, what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to, select the body parts you want, and you're going to have to use this tool here, Launch External Image Editor, and this will just launch the individual item. I'm going to show you the pipeline workflow, just so you're aware, just because it's a little bit, quite a bit easier actually. So what we're going to do is we're just going to go ahead and launch PSD Editor. And what this does is this will launch our entire character as a template into Photoshop, okay? And I already have Photoshop loaded up, so we won't have the login problems anymore. I got my password reset and everything from last time. So what we're going to do is we're going to select head and body in one file here, okay? We don't really need the head in this case, but I'm just going to do the head and body. We want to make sure we want to select edit current angle here, okay? And then just go ahead and launch it. And that's going to launch our project here in Photoshop. I'm just going to get this little grid out of the way there. And you can see our character right here. So what we need to do is we need to take this character's arm and separate it from the body. Now, if you go to your layers on the right side here, the layers tab, if we twirl all these down, you can see there's a lot of stuff here. There's a lot of complicated stuff that may seem fairly complicated at first. We're going to get into that a little bit later on. I'm not going to go into the details of this right now, but I'm going to just explain briefly these three sections here, okay? Or these three folders, rather. So the first folder is called RL Bone Human, okay? If we take that off, notice that these little there's little dots on like every joint of the character, basically, like the knees. I'm going to zoom in here a little bit so you can see a bit better. Like the shoulders, the hip. Okay, there's all these little dots here. Now these are basically the bone pivot points. Okay, so where your bones are going to start. So the bone for the shoulder, the bone for the elbow, and so on and so forth. You don't really need to worry about these unless you're going to have a character with vastly different proportions, and then you may need to move the bone parts. Okay, so we're just going to get over that for now. We're going to make those invisible, because we don't need to worry about those right now. And then there's a folder called RL Talking Head. Okay, so RL Talking Head is just the head part. Don't worry about this little white section here. This is actually just masked out in the final character. If we twirl down RL Talking Head, you can see there's a head bone section here. Okay, so those are just the bones for all the individual facial items here. Okay, and these ones are yellow crosses. All right, so there's bones for the nose, for the eyes, eyebrows, and stuff like that. You can take those off, and you can see those will disappear. Okay, and then we have stuff for the left. We have the nose. We have center is basically going to be our characters. These are just the profiles for your character. Okay, so the head can be facing left. There's a left for this character. There's a right for the character, and there's a center for the character, which is the one we're worrying about. And these are all the sprites on the character's face. Okay, now don't worry if you don't get this right now. We're going to go into it in more detail a little bit later on. Okay, but for now, all we're going to do is we can actually just remove all the head stuff, since we don't need to off with his head. Right? We don't need to worry about his head, just to make things simple. Okay, and we'll twirl this up. Now, RL Image, these are where all the body sprites are. Okay, so each folder in Photoshop corresponds with a sprite in Photoshop or in Cartoon Animator. And we're going to talk about the sprites a little bit later on. So what we want to do is we want to take our character's left arm. Okay, so what we can do is we can actually just click and drag and make all of these things invisible right now. Okay, and then we can just select our left forearm, our left arm, and we want to also select the character's hand. Okay, his left hand. Now the hand, if for example for the left forearm, if we go into the left forearm, you can see there's this item right here. This is just the left forearm. Okay, it's just an image for the left forearm. Okay, we don't need to worry about that right now. But if you go into the left hand, there's a whole bunch of different hands here. Okay, and we just have the basic hand. All right. Now, if we make these invisible, we can see this layer 101 is like a peace sign. This layer 100 is like a pointing sign. Okay, and this one's like an OK sign. The various layers are different hand sprites, and we'll talk more about that a little bit later on. We're just going to keep things simple and use the layer 102. So we want to basically take this arm and we want to create a free bone actor from this arm, so we can modify, so we can move it and add bones to it and everything like that. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and select this area right here, this layer. It's going to basically select everything. I'm just going to go ahead and Control C to copy everything, and we're going to go and start a new project. We can start from our clipboard, okay, which is what we've just copied, okay. We want to make sure our background is transparent, okay, very important, and create. Okay, and then I'm just going to Control V, and it's going to paste that arm in a separate file. Okay, so now we no longer need this character right here. We can just go ahead and close this down. Don't worry about that. Okay, all we want is this arm right here. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to save this arm and hand as a PNG file. So I'm going to go to File, Save As, and go to my desktop, but that's fine. Okay, I'll just save everything on the desktop. Make sure we select a PNG file with a transparent background, and we'll just call it disembodied arm. Okay. Maybe the name is a bit long, but anyways, okay. So now we have this disembodied arm on our desktop. And what I want to do is in a cartoon animator, I can actually go back into stage mode now, since we no longer need our character customization. Let's go back into stage mode here. And again, stage mode is where you do all the animation and all that stuff. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to simply click on that, click and drag that disembodied arm, and we're going to click and drag it into the stage. Okay. Now, when we do that, there's a number of different options. We can import it as a prop, we can import it as an image layer, background, or a free bone actor. Now, because we want to add bones to this free bone actor, what we can do what we can do is we need to go ahead and select G3 free bone actor. Sorry, I was just reading the chat window there for a sec. Yeah, so let's go ahead and do that because we want to add bones to the arm for sure. Okay, and you can see, whoops, there's our arm. It appears, and we're back in composer mode. So it automatically goes into composer mode. So the first thing I want to do is I want to add bones to this arm. Okay, just like a regular arm. I guess. Okay, so we'll just go ahead and select add bone. I'm going to start at the shoulder. Okay, so left click, and you can see it'll create a bone that I can stretch and move wherever I want. Whoops, I accidentally clicked there. Let's just Control Z that, undo that. Okay, add bone. Click in the shoulder. I'm going to click again at the elbow. It's going to create another joint, and then I'm going to click again on the wrist. Left click on the wrist. And then left click again on the end of the hand there, okay? And when you're done adding bones, you can simply just right click, and that'll stop the bone editing or the bone creation process, okay? And you can reset and move your bones and stuff if you want as well, but we're not going to worry too much about that right now. Okay, let's go ahead and exit out of the bone editor. So we have our disembodied arm. It's all set up with bones. What does that mean? That means we can move it around. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to go back to stage mode here. And you can see the bone's a little bit, it's a little bit large, okay? Maybe because the file size or the image size was a little bit larger. But you can see over here, we have disembodied arm. Now, you can see we can actually move this arm in front of the female character. So what we need to do is we need to set this disembodied arm onto our character and have it move in front of the female character, okay? Now, before we do that, what I want to do here is I want to make sure that I select my character. I want to get rid of the arm he already has. And the easiest way to do that is to go into the sprite editor and select the sprites that you don't want to show. Okay, so the sprite editor, by the way, is over there on the left. And this allows you to select a sprite like the upper arm here. So arm L, it's called in the sprite editor, and just select empty. And shazam, his arm is gone. Wow. All right. It's kind of difficult to see, but we'll select the forearm. The forearm should be easier to notice. You can see forearm L right here. So like I said, all these sprites correspond to the different layers in Photoshop, and we'll get into more detail on that. I'm going to select empty here, and boom, there goes his forearm. And we need to get the female character out of the way temporarily. You're free. And we'll take the Leon dude here, sprite editor. This time for sure, you'll see the hand disappear. All right, so hand, and you can see there's all the different hand sprites, and these correspond with the different layers we saw in Photoshop earlier. And I'm just going to change this one to empty too. Okay, boom. We just took off our dude's arm. Okay, so the next step here is let's bring our female character back to a comfortable distance here. I also want to put my character in a pose really quickly. I'm going to go to Content Manager here. I'm going to go to Animation, and in animation, let's see, there's a human, I think G3 human, it's in Turner's Mail here. You guys should all have these folders. They come default with Cartoon Animator 4. And there should be one called Fighting Pose. All right, so this is just a pose. Just throw them into this pose here. And then that brings the sprites back into play here. So we'll just go ahead and do the same thing one more time really quickly here. I should have done it the other way, but it's easy enough to just get rid of all these things. Click on them and just click on the empty little tab there, or little square in the library. Okay, so now he's in the fight pose with one arm. So let's resize this arm relative to what we think the character will look like, and then we just can go ahead and rotate it like this. Right? I think that looks reasonable. Okay, we won't worry too much about this, but you can also just move it up a little bit. Let's just rotate it, maybe something like this. Okay, so maybe she needs to be a little bit lower onto the ground. I'll just position her a little bit lower, or maybe even just shrink her a little bit. There we go. That'll do. So, okay, we have this arm, but this arm is actually not part of the character. If we want, we can link the arm to the character by just going up here and selecting a link right here. Okay, you can link to the character, and that way the arm will follow along with the character. Just link it to like the body like this, and then if we take our character, there we go. Okay, we can move them around, and that's how you link stuff. Pretty simple. So what I'm going to do is take the arm and go now, because it's a G3 Freebone actor. If we go into the scene manager here, you can see it's under G3 actor. It's not under props. Okay, so it's its own disembodied arm. It's like a Hollywood horror movie or something, or a B horror movie where the disembodied arm chases the children or something. I don't know. Anyways, we'll just go to the 2D motion key editor, and you can see now the bones appear. All right, so what we can do is we can take the bone, the second bone here, and we can move it up like this. Okay, and we can take the hand and we can rotate the hand just like this. Okay, and so on and so forth. We can take this bone here and rotate it as well, and maybe this hand should go a little bit further down like this. All right, so he's kind of covering her her mouth. She's been talking a little too much. That's why he's all upset. Anyways, okay, so that's how you do it. Basically, that's the problem solved. We have now our character with one arm in front and the other arm behind. Now, the other thing I wanted to show you really quickly here is how to quickly add sprites to our character. Because as you may recall, in the original video, this character was Leon. We'll call him Leon. Was holding a gun in his right hand. Okay, so it looks a little bit weird if he's like holding a fist. He's like, I'm gonna punch her. Don't you dare move. He has to be holding something a bit more lethal, like a gun. Okay, so to add a sprite, to do that, we need to add a sprite onto our character. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's select the character one more time. Go into composer mode here. Don't worry about that. I'm just going to reset the motion. And you can see his left arm is invisible. We need to select his right hand and go into the sprite editor. Now, in the sprite editor, we can add sprites. You can add sprites to your big sprite library here. Okay, you can see there's 29 of them. Right, all sorts of different hands. And if you click this button here, this button is Add New Sprite. Okay, so we can just select this. You don't need to go into Photoshop at all for this one. I have a sprite already prepared. And by the way, this character is thanks. I'm going to show this character a little bit later on. This character is from our one of our most prolific developers, Unreal Illusion for Cartoon Animator 4, Gary Pye, and I'll send a link to that character a little bit later on. Let's just go to the folder here, and I'm going to go into E to Z here, and characters, and spy, and PNG. All right, so we have a hand with a gun. All right, this is just a PNG file. Okay, and add that to our sprite library. And you can see maybe the size is a little bit off, but we can just go ahead and resize it and reposition it just like this. And if you wanted to go into more detail, of course, maybe the skin color is a little bit off from the character's skin, but I'm not going to worry about that right now. If you have questions about that a little bit later, you can ask me how to change the skin color on your character. Let's just throw it right there. All right, so looks pretty good. That's how we want our character's gun hand to look. And then we can just go close this down and go back into stage mode. Okay, we've added it to the library, so we don't need to worry if it pops back into the original one. So let's take our character one more time, go into Sprite Editor and select that hand. And we need to search down here. We have our gun 2 hand. Okay, there you go. He's like, you'll never catch me alive, Kappa. All right. And there you go. So that's basically how you can add a sprite, swap out a sprite, and create a limb using it via the method of G3 freebone actor. And that's really about all there is to it. Okay, so that's step 1 done. Okay, that's the scenario 1 I just wanted to show you because I get asked all the time about these sorts of situations, like, how do we have our character hold something, or how do we have his leg or his arm go in front. This is, like I mentioned, particularly useful for like riding a bicycle, one leg on one end, one leg on the other side. The process is still the same. Okay, so let's go ahead and start our next freebone actor. And this one's going to follow, fairly similar, fairly similar process. This one we're going to use our, we're going to use our G3, our After Effects image to create a freebone actor. A little bit more complicated, this one, okay? So this is an actual character. So I'm going to do the same process, go into images, and we have this After Effects logo. All I'm going to do is bring it in, click and drag it in, the same process as before, and go to G3 freebone actor. This character, we're going to add a head and some eyes and stuff to it, okay? So to get started, let's go ahead and add bones. We're going to add a bone structure to this character. So we'll go to add bone like we did before, and just start in the middle. And we're going to create 2 legs. Okay, so this is the left leg here. There we go. And we only want 2 bones for this leg. So we'll right click to stop that. And we select add bone again. And we start from the top here. And whoops, it's going to be a little bit short, but whatever. And then click down here. Okay. So now we have 2 legs. Pretty cool stuff. We can also, create sort of a head. Okay, since we want our After Effects logo to have a head, we have a disembodied After Effects logo. Let's do the same thing. Start there and go here. So that's like our neck bone and then our head bone. All right, good enough for me. So we have a bone structure, very, very simple bone structure. And you can see in the scene manager, those bones, the hierarchy shows right here. You can see different bones when we select them, where they are. Okay, so let's go ahead and I'm going to just go ahead and close this down now. And what we need to do is we need to add a face onto this character. Now, this is fairly simple to do. We're going to go to the content manager. And the content manager, when you're in composer mode, contains all the content that you can use to customize your character. Tons and tons and tons of content you can purchase on the content store or the marketplace. Okay, we have a plethora of developer content, really good stuff that you can check out. But let's go ahead and just add some eyes to this character. Sorry, a head. So we're going to go to head under head template here. We're going to go to head, and we have these vector buddies. This vector buddy content pack you can also purchase from the content store. And we'll go down to I don't know, this Jesse guy looks pretty good. Now, a very important thing to note here: when you click your head, when you click and drag your character's head, you have to click and drag it onto the right bone. So I probably want this bone 6 here to be the head bone, right? Since it's above the 2 limbs here. These are going to be the legs, and this one here is going to be the head. So what I want to do when I click and drag this onto my character is I want to make sure I click and drag it onto that bone. You can see the bone highlights in green. This is going to be our head bone, okay? So once we click and drag this head onto the head bone, it's going to now define it as our character's head, okay? All right, cool. So it's a little bit small. So what we're going to do is just size it up like this. And whoops, make sure we select our head and bring the head into the middle. And that seems okay, all right? But obviously we don't want our character's face and everything like that in front of the sprite, in front of our After Effects logo. We want to make it seem like it's a anthropomorphic After Effects logo. So let's go ahead and go to our layers, or rather scene manager here. And you can see we have all the different items on our character, the right eye, the nose, the mouth, and everything like that. What we need to do is actually make those all invisible. Okay, fairly simple process to do that. I don't want the brow, the eyes and stuff to be invisible. I just want the face and the ears and the hair to be invisible. So let's go ahead and do that. Front hair, right ear, back hair, um, and face. Make that invisible. And where's the other one? Our left ear here. Okay, boom. Suddenly we have this. Oops, drop something. Suddenly we have this. These eyes and the mouth, and we can actually animate this. And I'm going to show you that in just a moment. And if you want, of course, you can just select the items on your character, and you can resize them. Maybe we want to make our eyes a little bit bigger, just like this. We can kind of relocate them a little bit. Maybe one eye can be really big and the other eye can be a little bit smaller. They can layer over each other, no problem as well. And those eyebrows, yeah, really thin looking eyebrows there, or really short eyebrows, not thin. Woo. Okay, so maybe this one can be a little bit shorter, since we're kind of like having him face at a 45-degree angle here. Okay, so it's sort of side facing a little bit at a 45-degree angle. So maybe one can be a little bit longer than the other one. And then the mouth, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so boom, there's our character. Let's go back into stage mode here. All right, so in stage mode, you can see we have our After Effects character. Now we can do a number of, because this is a free bone actor with a face and a head, we can actually do a number of different things. We can use things like the facial puppet tool. Okay, so the facial puppet tool is just your kind of real-time puppet tool that follows your mouse movements. And if you have any questions about this, feel free to ask me, but I'm not going to go into too much detail on it right now. I'm just going to go ahead and preview, and don't worry about that. Okay, and you can see there's our disembodied head. We can have him, like, you know, with different expressions like this. Hey, I'm Mr. After Effects, rah, 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 you know. Okay, so that's pretty simple, and that's basically the character animation for the face. You can also go into like the face key editor as well. That's another facial animation tool. You can use a template like Happy, like this, these other ones. Okay, there you go. So let's go ahead and close that down now. And yeah, so I think we're good with facial animation. Just want to show you the possibilities there. Let's create a little quick animation, because as you may recall in the scene, the guy had Jim had a little bit too much coffee, and he started seeing things like an After Effects logo, you know, just skittering by on the ground. I'm not saying this is from personal experience, but it may be hallucinations in the office from too much coffee. I think some of us have been there anyways. All right, anyways, let's go ahead and create a quick animation for our character using the 2D motion key editor, just like we did before. But now you can see we have a few more options in terms of bones. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into my timeline here. Again, you can also press the F3 hotkey like I mentioned last time. And I always advise having object-related track selected. Let's just go to frame 5. And let's take our little bone nubs on the bottom here, these ones, and we'll just kind of move it a little bit forward like this. You can see we can have it. He's like waving. He's like, hello, hello. All right. So what we're going to do is kind of just create a little bit of a walk cycle for our character. So at frame 5, we're going to move this bone forward. We're going to take this bone and move that one forward like this. And then at frame 10, we can just go ahead and move them the other way. All right, like this and like this. All right, pretty simple stuff. And if we want, we can move the head as well, like, you know, take the head like this. Maybe this one will move it a little bit back. And back at frame 5, we'll move it a little bit forward. Okay, so what I want to do now is I want to go into the, by the way, don't worry too much about all of these tracks here. The T stands for transform. Again, we'll talk more about this stuff in part 3, which is going to be the animation part of the webinar. Let's go to our motion track. Okay, this is the only thing you want to worry about. These are the absolute keys. So these are the main keys that will basically contain all the animation data on that frame for every single bone in your character. Okay, so you don't have to worry about all the separate bones. This will basically have all the bone data in a single keyframe in the transform track. Okay, so what we want to do is we want to have our character move back and forth like this. He could be dancing, he could be walking, who knows? All right. So all I want to do is I want to, I'm just going to click and drag and select both of these keyframes here, and then right click and copy them. It's a very, very simple two keyframe animation. And we can go to frame 15 and control V, go to frame 25 and control V, frame 35 and control V if we want. But what I'm going to do to make it easier is just create a clip like we did before. Okay. So you can see he's kind of just like doop, 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 moving along like this, back and forth. And again, if you want to add that to your character's action menu, very simple, like we mentioned before. Open your collect clip track, click and drag the area that you want to create in your the data for your walk, and right click in the collect clip track, and you can select export. You can export perform, but we're just going to go ahead and add it to our action menu. Okay, and we'll call it cool sea walk. Okay, and press OK, and then we'll go ahead and close it down. Close everything down here. Let's just go ahead and right click on our character, action menu, and sea walk. There you go. He just does a little wiggle. Maybe it's a little bit fast. Apologies for those of you who, if you may be experiencing some sort of lag, the sea walk may be a little bit fast. But then if we press F3 and go into our timeline, we can see our sea walk right here. And we can click and drag on the end of the clip to loop it like this. We can have our character walking, walking along just like that. Okay, so there's our sea walk. Cool stuff. All right, that's all I wanted to do for the Freebone actor. Now I'm going to talk about the next part is a little bit. We're going to go into more detail in the Photoshop part of things. So let's go ahead and create a new project, and let's bring in our basic character. Okay, so I'm going to go to G3 human. So these are the basic characters, the template characters you can use to start your customized character. Let's take this elastic folks male side facing. Everyone will have this character. We can just simply double click him to add him to our scene. Whenever you double click something from the content library or content manager, by the way, it'll just automatically add to the scene root, which is that little red and blue crosshair in the middle of your project there. Okay, so the part we're going to do now is we're going to create a custom character. So I'm going to, again, of course, take it into composer mode. And in Photoshop, we can just go ahead and close this one down. We don't need to worry about this anymore. And let's go to our composer. And again, same process. We're going to take it, launch the PSD editor. And same thing, we're just going to go ahead and take the body and head in one file and launch it. And the vector elements will be converted to image elements. So right now we don't support vector bodies for our characters. That's going to be something we're working on in the near future here. So your character is going to be all image-based, okay? So I'm going to just take off this extra thing here. Okay, so same character. You may recognize these folders I kind of introduced a little bit earlier. The RL bone. We don't need to worry too much about the bones. We can actually just remove that. The head, we don't need to worry about the head. We're just going to, what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to replace a couple of body sprites and just show you the process. Because again, I don't want to replace every single part of the character's body because that can be a little bit repetitive. And once I do the first few, you should probably be able to get the hang of it. And if you don't, there's always Q&A. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. We need to explore into this RL image folder. Okay, so again, this is where all the body sprites are. Left arm, left foot. Those are the ones we talked about earlier, and left hand. When you're creating a custom character, I recommend starting at the hip bone, okay, at the hip image, okay, because the hip is basically the center of your character, and this is what your character is based around. So once you have the hip set to scale and everything like that, the hip sprite, then everything will be a little bit easier to scale and to position. Okay, so in the hip folder, you can see there's this image called layer 44. If we make that invisible, that's basically the character's hip sprite. Okay, right here. It includes the torso, the abdomen, and the neck for this particular character. As you can see, now he just looks like a weird looking dude with no body. Okay, so what we're going to do is generally what you want to do is you want to create your character um, using this method. So you want to have different sprites for different body parts. So when you're drawing your character in Photoshop or Illustrator or whatever GIMP you're using, you want to make sure that you save each file, each body part, each sprite separately. Okay, these are all separate images. I'm going to show you what I'm talking about here. So this is the Gary Pie character that I was talking about earlier. Right here, you can go ahead and take a look at this folder here. So, whoops, that's the actual character. This one is the head sprites, and this one here is the different body sprites right here. This file right here. Okay, so here we have things like the left foot. We have left arm. Since they're white, maybe it's a little bit difficult to see. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring in this torso file here. In this, very white, immaculately white suit. So what we need to do, I'm just going to go ahead and make sure we have the hip layer selected here. Okay, make sure you have the hip layer selected, because that way it's going to import directly into that layer. And click and drag your image anywhere onto your project, really. It'll just kind of move to the center. And now you can see, oh, well, it should go into that layer. But if not, you can always just click and drag it into the correct layer, which in this case is the hip. So essentially what we're doing here is we're replacing this layer 44 with our torso, our new layer. Okay, we'll just click it and drag it above the other torso. So we want to basically move this and we want to scale it to the correct proportions of our character. And the way we do that, again, just click and drag and scale it like this. Something that we think would look appropriate. I think this is probably good right there. When you're done that, press enter. And then I'm going to right click on that layer, and you need to make sure you rasterize the layer before you save your character, and it'll export back into Cartoon Animator. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that, and we'll just basically, this layer 44, just delete it. Okay, so now we have this character with no neck and no bum and arms and legs. So what we can do is we can just take this character, this bum, as it's so eloquently named here, and click and drag that into the same layer. Okay, there we go. And we'll just stretch that out like this. Okay, so this that looks fine. Okay, we'll press enter there, and we want to make sure this is below the torso layer, just like that. Okay, that's what it's supposed to be. And we can actually just right click and rasterize that as well. And what I want to do here is maybe let's go ahead and use our tool here, our eyedropper tool. That's the one. And select this color here, and let's just fill in the bum with the different color. There we go. So now it looks the same. And let's take our torso a little bit higher there as well. Or there we go. So it's just so it's not the leg's not in front of it there. All right, that's better. Maybe scale it down a smidgen there. Okay, that's good. All right, so let's bring in the neck too. Okay, so this character actually has a neck, and let's go ahead and do that. Neck right here. Why is it not? Oh, there we go. And the neck has appeared right over here, and that neck is going to be on top of the torso. So let's click and drag that layer. There you go. And maybe want to give him a little bit of a thicker neck. He looks like a little weenie with that small neck there. All right, there we go. Okay, and then we just press enter, and we have the character with the neck and the legs and everything like that. Now, if we want, we can maybe do something like we can also replace the arms, like I mentioned earlier. But what I want to do in this, I'm going to try it in this case. I'm going to select this white color for our torso there, and let's just fill in the arms, see if this works. This is a little bit, oops. We need to make sure that we rasterize this layer. And I'm going to make sure we have the left arm selected right here. Boom. All right. So he has a pretty weird looking suit with short sleeves. Maybe it got shrunk in the wash or something like that. But yeah, there you go. You can do that, or you can replace the arms with. Make sure you select the right arm, Where is it here? There we go. Make sure you select that layer and then fill that in. And you know, looks maybe he's like has a kind of maybe it's the style these days. I don't know. They have shorter pants are the style and shorter suits maybe. Okay, but before we move on, the most important thing we want to do is we want to make sure that we merge all of these layers under hip into one. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that by just control selecting all the layers. We can right click and then select merge layers. Okay, and it doesn't really matter what we name it. There used to be a naming convention that was required, but since then we've updated it. So let's just go ahead and call it torso. Okay, and that's basically it. We've just customized our character. We can replace the head and the face and all that stuff. We're going to talk about that a little bit later. Let's go ahead and file and save. What's going to happen now is our character is going to be replaced. Once we select file and save in Photoshop, the character is going to be replaced in Cartoon Animator 4 because there's a link. Okay, this is one of the big advantages of the pipeline version is now you're able to just update live from Photoshop. Okay, so there's our character all set to go. And we can go back into, well, let's not go back into stage mode yet. What I'm going to do is I'm going to replace the character. We'll go back into stage mode actually first. I'm going to replace the entire character in the end here. Okay, so here he is, and we can have him like do an animation with the content manager. Let's do Turner's Mail side facing motion. We can do something like the laugh. Hot dog. All right. And there you go. So the character has been customized in various ways. And again, basically, you just want to repeat the same process for all the different sprites to replace them. And you can go from there. I probably want to change the color of the neck to match the character as well. He got a tan on his neck, but nowhere else. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and start a new project. We're not going to use this character. I've already, again, thanks to Gary Pye for this character, for allowing us to demo with this character here. And we're going to take this Spy Guy 360, okay, because this character's head is already set up. And while that's loading, I'll go ahead and maybe try and find it. Let's see if Google Spy Guys. Okay. Well, you can go to Gary Pye's marketplace page here. I'll throw this in the. This is a slightly different character, but there's also okay. So this is the marketplace. By the way, this is another Gary Pye spy character. Let's search for spy and see if that works. I believe the character that we're using is a little bit different. Yeah, this one right here, the Bendies. So Gary Pye has a really cool Bendy series with all these different characters you can see here. Some of them inspired by Austin Powers. But I'm going to go ahead and copy and paste this into the chat window for you guys there. Seems a lot of people are using the chat window. All right, seems like a big chat going on there. Okay, so let's continue on then. Let's close this down. Recommend picking up this character, really cool looking character. So the last thing I'm going to talk about before we move into the animation is just basically how to, we're not going to create a 360 head from scratch like I mentioned earlier. I'm going to go into the composer mode here, and I'm going to show you how to basically add an accessory or anything to your character's face. This could be an earring, this could be a nose ring, it could be like sunglasses or anything like that. I'm just going to use a very simple example. It's going to be a bandage. Okay, so you're probably familiar with composer mode by now. Over here on the left, there's a funky little tool called the 360 head creator. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and select that, and we're going to take off our bones since we don't want to see the bones right now. And if we preview and press the space, preview, you can see if we move our mouse cursor. Man, this lockdown is making me stir crazy. If you move it around, the mouse cursor around your little area here, then you can see 360 head is basically already set up. You know, the process of this, there's a tutorial that I can show you. Let's actually go into, let's take preview off here. Let's actually go into our learning center here for Cartoon Animator 4. Products, Cartoon Animator, learn tutorials. And there's a whole ton of tutorials here for 360 head creation. Okay, so I highly recommend checking out these tutorials because they'll basically have everything you need to know about 360 head creation. And I don't have time in this webinar to run you through all of it. We could have a tutorial, or we could have a webinar based entirely on 360 head creation. It might be a little bit monotonous, but I'd recommend checking out these tutorials as well. I'm going to just go ahead and copy these into the chat window. Okay. And Gary's actually attending himself here. So Gary Pye is actually in the chat window. He's the guy who's created all this funky stuff. All right. So make sure you check out his store in the marketplace later on. Where were we? Yes, back in Cartoon Animator 4, we were talking about how to add an accessory to your character's face. So to do that, we're going to close down the 360 head creator for now. We're going to go into our layer manager. All right. And with the talking head selected, you can see under talking head, these are all the sprites on our character. Okay, so a ton of different sprites and that are attached to our character's head. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and press this plus key down here, and that's going to add an image. Okay, and I'm going to select a file that I have prepared, a bandage. Okay, now this is from Google image search. If the image is too large, don't worry about it. Just go ahead and resize it. Press yes, and it's going to be pretty big, pretty big. Okay, when it finally appears in our scene, it's just loading up because it's so massive. There you go. It's a bandage for a giant. So let's go ahead and take that bandage and scale it down to size there, just like that, and we can zoom back in. And we can rotate it and position it. You can see it's basically attached to the talking head. So I'm just going to move it over here. And if you want the bandage to be above the facial features, you can click and drag and move it up on the layers here. We can just click and drag and move it up like this, and it'll still be below the nose, but above the nostril. You can take it to the top like this. Take it to the top. Oops. We can let's go ahead and rotate it and resize it a little bit. Just something like this. He cut himself shaving. Even James Bond or Spy Guy cuts himself shaving sometimes. Okay, so we'll just position it right there, and that's fine. Okay, so now we have this accessory. It could be an earring. It could be whatever. Like I mentioned, it could be sunglasses. It could be a monocle. Let's go back into our 360 head creator, and if we preview one more time, you'll see that, yeah, the head's fine, but our bandage seems to just kind of float in place. So what we need to do is stop the preview there. I said kind of tilted to the side there for some reason. Let's try and get that back into position. Weird. All right. There we go. And go back into the 360 head creator. And what we want to do is we want to click on each one of these points here, okay? So these angle points, we're going to click on the left one right here. And the left one, we'll click on the right one first, actually. This is kind of easier. So you'll see that the bandage stays in place, but the character's face moves. So what we need to do is we need to select that bandage and move it up like this. Okay, so let's position it like that. And that'll be good. That's what we want. If we go to our lower point here, our lower angle point, we can move it a little bit further down. And you also may want to, in this case, like squash it a little bit slightly. Just like that. Whoops, maybe the other way. Just make it seem a little bit. Basically, you want to create the illusion of 3D. It's obviously not possible to create 3D from a 2D program, but you want to create the illusion. And then you want to go to the up position like this and position it further up like that. Maybe rotate it slightly a bit more. And like that. That'll be fine. And so we have this angle here. We have the bottom angle and the top angle and the left angle. We'll go ahead and move it over here. And you can see when we move it over here, it actually goes off of our character's face. So in that case, what we need to do is we need to use a nifty little tool over here called the masking tool. Okay, so you can see when I mouse over this little icon over here in my layer manager, we have the option to mask and unmask. So if I click that, it's going to mask it, and then you can see now the bandage is masked. So if anything is masked under the talking head, basically it will not be able to move beyond the borders of the head, which is the head outline basically. Okay, so just keep that in mind. If you wanted to like mask the left ear, for example, that would mask out because it's beyond the border of the head. Okay, we don't want to do that because we want to keep his ears. Okay, so we have a couple of good. Let's preview this one more time. Now you can see if we move from right to left, the bandage will actually kind of appear to be 3D on his face. Okay, like that. So pretty cool. And basically, you just follow the same process for all the other things. You can go up like that and then down like that. Okay, you probably may want to check it a little bit better and do a little bit of a more detailed positioning than I did. Yeah, that's basically the process for throwing that on there. And you can also use this tool here, which is onion layer. Okay, this kind of helps as well. If we go to select the, oops, we select, yeah. So again, little bug where he's coming from. So this will be the, if you select onion layer and you select a different angle, you can see here, you can position it a little bit better. So left is over here, and then you can select, whichever angle profile you want. Like if I select the middle one, and so on and so forth. Okay, so you can select maybe the right one as well, and you can see the position of the bandage in the right position and the left position there. Okay, so maybe that'll be fine. We'll go ahead and take off onion mode, and close that down. All right, so now we have our character with his bandage and everything like that. Really quickly, I'm going to go back into stage mode, and we're going to talk about the difference between the two animations. We're not going to be able to cover any other animation stuff. We'll take a look at all the animation stuff on Thursday. I just want to show you this, briefly show you. We'll just have his head tilted. Okay, don't worry about it. What we'll do is we're going to throw in a couple of animations here. I want to show you the difference between two different types of animations. To do that, I actually need to bring in a background here. Otherwise, it's going to be hard to tell if our character is actually moving. So let's throw in an image here. And here we go. Let's say he's in the snow. I'm going to click and drag this image in. We're going to import this as a prop. Okay, and just we'll resize it a little bit larger and move it behind the character. There we go. All right, so now we have the spy guy in our winter wonderland. He's going to be running opposite way of the goal. So we'll go to animations and Turner's mail and side. Now, there's a couple motions here I want to take a look at. Actually, we're going to use a different one here. We're going to use the G3 Human Mission Moves. Okay, this is another content pack you can purchase from the content store. Because these ones are a little bit more dynamic, and these are the ones I use in the webinar, or in the project rather. Okay, so there's two different types of run here. You can see we have this run, the run 1S. Basically, whenever you see a 1S, a 2L, and a 3E, it stands for starting the motion. L stands for looping the motion, and 3 is for ending the motion. Okay, so let's take a look at what this is. So I'm going to go ahead and use the start one. Okay, so you can see he starts, and let's press F3 to go into our timeline so we can actually see those motions and open the motion clip track here. So there's our run forward, and then we need to go ahead and use the run forward L, so 2L for the loop. Okay, and you can see we have this one clip here and the second clip, and they're seamlessly blended together. So our character starts running, and then he continues running. Then we just go to the last frame of the second clip, and then we use the third one, which is end running. Okay, and he runs off the screen. Get back here. All right, so now we have this. We have our character running, start running, loop, and end running. Okay, if we wanted him to run further, we can go ahead and just delete that third clip. And let's take this thing here and we'll just add another run forward. Okay, so we double click it and run forward. Now he'll run forward even further. Now, the important thing to note here is that our character is actually moving forward. When we apply these motions, he's moving forward. And these are called root motions. So a root motion is indicated in the thumbnail by lines behind the character. You can see these ones have lines behind the character. Okay, in the thumbnail, just to take a close look, there's lines behind the character when he's running. That indicates it's a root motion. He'll change root position in the motion clip. But let's take a look. Let's go ahead and delete all these. Okay, and I'm going to use these other runs. Okay, so there's another set of runs here, but notice these thumbnails don't have the character, don't have the lines behind them. Let's just use the run loop as an example here. Okay, we don't need to do the whole start, loop, and end. Now notice we have the same clip, but our character is running in place, just like this. Okay, we don't need to worry about the sprites and the layers. Let's close that down for now to avoid confusion. Okay, so what we have is this run, but he's running in place. Now we can loop this as long as we want, like maybe 3 times. And then we have our character running like this. Okay. And what I want to do is actually change the position of my character. So this is what the transform track is for. So I'm going to just basically double click in the transform track. That's going to add, whoops, that opens up our motion key editor since we're in the motion transform. We'll go to our transform track here. All right, we have a thumbnail, a keyframe right here. And let's say he runs, let's see how long our motion clip goes. So he runs this stage right here, and we'll just get out of our motion since we don't want to confuse you right now. And let's move our character, way down here, like move him like way down here. And you'll notice now that when I move my character, there's a green line that appears behind him. Okay. And there's just like 2 positions. There's this position here and that position here. And another keyframe appears in our timeline. So now if we go ahead and play back, we have our character move to that position that we wanted to. That's a basic, very basic transform animation. So there's 2 different types of motions. You can use both types for different scenarios. I just want to show you that. And if you have any questions, you can ask me more about it. But we'll talk more about the motion stuff on Thursday. Okay, I think that's about all there is to it. I'm going to get to the Q&A section right now, since I've gone a bit over time, a wee bit over time. Yeah, okay. Apologies for the character's head tilting forward. He's just very aggressive today. Okay, let's get into the Q&A. So any questions you guys have, please throw those into the Q&A window, and I will get to those as well. And as well, if you have any questions that you don't want to ask me today, or something pops up in your mind later on, you can always email me. My email is kai@reallusion.com. That's kai@reallusion.com. Okay, so let's go to the first question here from Olivier. I have an old version of Flash still working. I would like to find the G2 character Flash template. To make, I think it would make it more easy to organize my file and use Illustrator file inside Flash. Okay, yeah, that's fine. To find the template files for G2 characters, those are in the Developer Center. So developer.reallusion.com, I believe, is the website. Yep, developer.reallusion.com. And it may have switched around a little bit, but let's go to Content Development Resources here and Crazy Talk Animator. Okay, should be Cartoon Animator now, but Crazy Talk Animator has the G2 character templates, so you can find those right here. You can download the white papers for G3 characters if you want to learn like a step-by-step process on how to create your characters with the white papers. You can download those all here. I'll throw that in the chat window as well for you guys. Just a reminder to everyone to ask your questions in the Q&A window, because I won't be answering questions from the chat window. Okay, make sure you put those questions in the Q&A panel there. Okay. Okie dokes. So this is where you can find all the templates, all the white papers and templates. can find the G2 stuff down here as well. Okay, so if you don't recall, last webinar on Sunday, we talked about the G2 characters and how they kind of are able to rotate 360 degrees, which will soon be possible for G3 characters as well. All right, in the year 2000, although it's already 2020. Woo. All right, James Ferguson asks, is there any way to anchor the new arm to the shoulder so it can be moved naturally? Yeah, very glad you asked that, James. That's something that's fairly easy to demonstrate. Now, if you may recall, let's go ahead and let's quickly create our arm again. Bone actor. So this is kind of review for everyone. Adding the bone. Adding, I add the bone, yeah. Oops. What's going on here? Oh, I think I may have, oh, that's right. I deselected show bones, so I can't see our bones. Oh, crap. Okay, let's do this again. Sorry, guys. Make sure you show the bones. I thought I was having some sort of, I was tripping out from all this isolation here. All right, let's take that bone actor again. Make sure this time we have show bone selected. Okay, right up here, and add some bones. Boop, boom. There we go, wrist and finger, and right click, and done. Okay, so that's our free bone actor. The question was how to link this to our character. So let's just throw in any old character. Let's give Athletic Tim, well, might as well just use the same character, since it's just as easy to find it. Or is it? Where is that character again? Yeah, Campus Heroes. Campus Hero. All right. So we'll throw in Leon there and link him up. Again, we need to scale that down. Whoops, not that far. Maybe this far. We'll give this guy 3 arms temporarily. Okay. So again, we can move that. Let's just position it a little bit differently. So you can see now it kind of rotates around the center. We'll just kind of place it right there for now. We'll go back into composer mode here. And what we want to do is we want to go ahead and select our root right here. And we need to set the point on our character. This little bone here in the middle, you can't really see it. Let's zoom in really close here. This little root right here, how do we change that again? We need to transform bone. Yes, transform bone. Okay, up here. Haven't done this for ages. So we need to, oh crap, move the transform bone. All the other bones will move along with it, but yeah, we need to change the transform bone right here, the root, and make sure it's up here. Okay, let's go back into bone editor, and then we can just take these bones and we probably start from the top here and move them all back. All right, so the transform bone is where is going to be like the pivot point of your arm, basically. So we want to move that, at the shoulder and close that down. So again, if we zoom in really close, you can see this little thing right here. This is called the root, and that's our transform bone. All right, we want to make sure that's kind of at the shoulder because that's where the arm is going to be rotating from. So we'll take that back into stage mode now, and then if we select it, it should be able to rotate from there. No, this little root here should be, did I save it? What did I do wrong? Yeah, so here, this is the way it should rotate. And I believe that, I'm not sure why it wasn't rotating that way in, if I preview. Yeah, it should be rotating from here. We may have encountered some sort of pesky little bug, but it should be rotating from that direction or from that pivot point there. Maybe if we go back again, it'll do it. Nope. Interesting. All right, because it's maybe we have to link it to our. Let's link it to our character's body here. All right. Well, I'll have to take a look into that later. It seems a little bit strange that this little point here is not, because I did it in the composer mode. It's not updating in on our character, which is a little bit odd. But yeah, so that's basically how it should work. And then you should be able to, whenever your character moves, again, it doesn't really matter, but because you can just take your arm and you can, move it in any direction this way, just like this. Again, you can have him, moving from here. Yeah, that should be the way you do it anyways. I don't think you really need to worry about that root bone, but generally that's where you should be able to position something where it can rotate from that. I'm not sure why that didn't update properly, but anyways, that's the method that we're supposed to use. Okay, hopefully that answers your question there, James. It should work. If not, then we need to get that updated. So Brian asked, when was the right hand sprite? Brian Jensen asks, was the right hand sprite replace already linked to the bones? Yeah, so whenever you replace a sprite, basically all the sprites are already linked to your character. All right, so your character comes like as a full package. So again, if I just go into if my character is selected, I can go to sprite editor. One very important thing I want to mention here is if we go into composer mode, this is very important. It's something that we didn't really cover, and it's kind of related to Brian's question. There's two different types of modification when you modify your character's sprites. Let's take a look at the right hand, for example. So notice when we select the right hand, currently the outline box is blue, okay? So blue means you're basically editing the bone, okay? So the bone, you can edit this bone. There's a blue selection box. And that basically that means we're in bone edit mode. Now, if we go over here to sprite editor, what's going to happen is that box is going to change to green. And that means we are in sprite edit mode, okay? It's very important to distinguish between these two, because if we modify the bone, it's going to modify all the sprites in the sprite library. Let's take a quick look here. So let's go to our victory, for example. Say, for example, when he's doing the victory finger, we just want to move, for some reason, we want to move his hand off of the arm, okay? So what's going to happen with the character is when we change sprites, it's going to be like this, and then back to the normal position. But whenever he does the victory symbol, he's a little bit too emphatic, and it just goes off his hand, all right? However, if we close down the sprite editor, and we have the blue box here, and we make we're only modifying this sprite right here, okay? So if we move this sprite over here or something like that, we want to select edit pose and move it over here, and maybe just enlarge it. You want to make sure you select edit pose before you do this, by the way. Make sure that's enabled. What's going to happen is, let's make it a little bit not too comically large. All right, we'll just make it that large. What's going to happen now is if we go back into our sprite editor, let's go out of edit pose mode here. We go to our sprite editor. What's going to happen is all the sprites have been modified, so they're all larger, okay? And if you rotate it, if you scale it, they're all going to have that same modification, okay? You can see the scales are all large for all the different sprites. So that's why it's very important to be able to distinguish between bone edit mode, edit pose mode here, and the sprite editor, all right? Hopefully that's clear for you guys. Yeah, so it's kind of related to Brian's question there. Harry asked who made the hand with the gun. That was Gary Pye, the developer I mentioned earlier, and I did link his Bendy's spy character in the chat window, so you can go through the chat history and check that out. Okay. Next question is from Jared Smith. Face puppet tool versus face key editor. Would you say the puppet tool is not really the best tool for actual facial animation for any custom character? Now, um, say you're kind of a lazy animator like me, and you want to have like you want to make a quick, like, 2-minute animation. You just want to, like, you have a client that's like, hey, I need this right now on my desk or something, and or you just want to, you don't want to like waste your time. You just want to have a really quick animation on the fly. The facial puppet tool is awesome. It works really well. I'll give you a quick example here. Let's just go ahead and do an animation, because it just takes like this guy has a huge hand and 2 arms and three arms rather. He looks like a monster. We've totally mutilated this guy. Okay, so anyways, let's go back to the facial puppet tool right here. So if I want to, create a facial animation, let's go with something like this angry profile, and we can preview it, and you can see, "Ooh, I'm angry," So if we did something like, let's go ahead and first record or create a script really quick. We'll just say like, want to give him a masculine voice. Oh, he's gonna have a girl voice. I don't have any. Let's just use my voice. It's gonna be weird with him having a woman's voice. So I'm gonna record my own voice, right? Ooh, I'm so mad right now. Okay, I'll play that back. Ooh, I'm so mad right now. Okay, and just press OK. Ooh, I'm so mad right now. Okay, and there's the automatic lip syncing, but he doesn't really look very mad, right? So we're about like 149 frames right here when the voice lip sync ends. I'm gonna go back to the first frame, and we're gonna record over with the face puppet tool. All right. Now let's use the angry profile again here, and let's just go ahead and record. Ooh, I'm so mad right now. Okay, now if we go ahead and play that back. Ooh, I'm so mad right now. Okay, he looks, kind of mad. Now I want to point out here the reason his lips didn't move during the puppet recording was because lip sync will always overpower your puppet clip. Okay, so you can't overwrite your lip sync with the puppet tool. Okay, just to be aware of that. Right, he still doesn't look super mad. Ooh, I'm so mad right now. But if I wanted to make him extra mad, what I can do is I can use the let's use the face key editor. Okay, and I can go into transform and select his brows. I can rotate those and move them down just like this. So he's super mad. Okay, and we can select deform and deform them, even his eyebrows even higher, and take his eyes and move his eyes up like this. Okay, so that makes him look even angrier. We can maybe take the nostril up as well. Okay, just something like that. So what's going to happen now is from this frame here, so now he looks really angry. Okay, so we can layer on top of the puppet animation tool. We can layer on top of that with the facial edit tool. And again, apologies if I went too fast there. We're going to explain more about those tools in part 3 of the webinar. I just kind of want to briefly demonstrate. Ooh, I'm so mad right now. Okay. Cool. Let's move on to the next question there. So hopefully that was kind of a good demonstration for you there, Jared. You can do like a really quick facial animation using the puppet tool, and then layer on top of it using the face key editor, which is, don't tell anyone, but that's what I do quite often. All right. Next question is also from Jared Smith. What's the best way to take a character we have created and be able to swap out their hairstyles and clothing sets in the most effective way? Would you clarify that I am doing it correctly by making separate bodies for each clothing set and then separate heads for each hairstyle? If so, is there a tutorial on how to set up a character so we can save different heads and bodies? Yeah, to be honest, for bodies, you're definitely doing it the right way. You want to have separate bodies for each clothing set. Absolutely. That's probably the easiest way to do it. Just save the body, save the character as a separate character for each clothing set, and you can always just swap out the heads for whatever you want. In terms of heads, you can actually save the heads, like I showed earlier. You can actually save the heads as separate heads for different hairstyles. If we go briefly into composer mode here, excuse me, I'm gonna take a quick look in composer mode and show you here. Oh, yes, we can just go ahead and continue. Here's our dude with the monstrous hand. So in the content manager, you can see there is a head section here for the heads, and there's also stuff for the hair as well. So um, hair in particular, you don't need to save as a head if you just have different hair sets. Like for example, these are just different hairs. Um, you can save custom hairs as well. Whenever you bring in your character, you can just select his hair here, and just go ahead and go to our custom tab, and under hair, we'll just save it as plus. That's by the way, that's how you save custom hair. Custom anything basically. You just go to your custom tab and press the plus button on the bottom of your content manager. Not sure why it's taking so long. There we go. Cool hair. All right, you can apply that cool hair to anyone else as well. Yeah, that's because hair is separate from the head. You can do that if you want to just that's a way you can do it. But generally saving the heads is also a good way. You can it's up to you really. Save the hair or save the head. Either way. Okay, question from Constanza. Question for character creation. Is it necessary to create each drawing with the correct name? Can we just save, for example, folder hip, but the layer is named 001? Will I have problems with the name recognition in Cartoon Animator 4 or not? Yes, it used to be a problem, but it's no longer a problem. Hopefully I just kind of demonstrated that. I just called it hips. You can call it whatever you want, basically, these days. It is good practice to keep the same file names, keep the same layer names just for organization. But you can call it like Kalamazoo or something, Kalamazoo hip 0145 $ or something. It should be fine. I haven't had problems with that recently, but it did used to be a problem, but we've kind of resolved that in most scenarios there. So the naming shouldn't be a problem. Okay, and second question from Constanza. I just watched an anime named B-Star that uses CGI 3D animation. This is the same animation I could do with is this the same animation I could do with the face recognition in Cartoon Animator 4? Yeah, so I kind of I talked about facial animation a little bit earlier. In terms of 3D animation, in case you're not aware, we do have a 3D software called iClone that is much more comprehensive and much more detailed than Cartoon Animator 4. A lot more potential, a lot more capabilities. I'd highly recommend checking out iClone if you haven't. It's basically has everything Cartoon Animator 4 has, and well, basically 10, 15 times more things than Cartoon Animator 4 has. So if you're looking at 3D CGI animation, like you mentioned from this Bear Star animation, definitely recommend checking out iClone instead of Cartoon Animator 4, because Cartoon Animator 4, of course, is 2D. Okay. Let's go on to the next question here from James Ferguson. Can we use hand sprites from other characters on our character? For example, putting a gun in the hand of the Bendy character if the original doesn't have that sprite. Yeah, totally fine. Like I kind of demonstrated, you can just go into your sprite editor and add a bunch of sprites, add as many sprites as you want. We can, for example, take this guy and give him let's find some weird image. I probably have some weird image on my computer somewhere. Let's add another sprite here. Let's give him a watermelon sofa hand. Okay. Your hand is now a watermelon sofa. You've been cursed by the watermelon gypsy. All right, so there his watermelon sofa hand. And then if we go back into stage mode, we'll have this really mutated guy. He's probably so angry because we've just mutated him so much. Go over here to our sprite editor and select the hand, and we should have our watermelon sofa in there. There you go. He's like, beware the watermelon-handed, multi-armed man. Yeah, so that's basically any image you want, you can just throw in there. Easy as pie. Let's go ahead to our Q&A window again. Brian Jensen mentions here, when you spoke of rastering layers, what type of changes would require you to do so, since color fills, etc., didn't require that? Well, you're not able to do the color fill until the layer is rasterized, really. Yeah, just it's just a requirement of Cartoon Animator 4. I don't know the technical details as to why, but the layers do have to be rasterized in order for them to import properly into Cartoon Animator 4. That's really all I can tell you about that. So let's move on to the next question here from Harry Goldhagen. Is there a full body version of the G3 360 Samantha character? Similar style characters available. G3 360 Samantha? Oh, this one here, right. Oh, I don't think so. I don't believe we do. This is just an image that we kind of created us using for Freebone. So unfortunately not. We don't have a full version of her, but you know, the characters in the campus bundle are pretty similar. It's pretty similar artistic style anyways, like Kristen here's probably, you know, fairly similar to her. We'll have mutated arm man and his unreasonably attractive girlfriend here. And then why not throw Samantha in there for fun? It's like a mutant party, except for she doesn't have a body. The bodiless woman. You can see the style is, you know, kind of similar. Anyways, yeah, unfortunately, we don't have a body version of Samantha that I know of. You can use her head and create a body. You can probably throw her head on top of a body. I do believe she does have a separate head. Let's see if she does. I'm just very curious. Yeah, Brian asking, have you thought of a voiceover career? I don't think anyone would really want to, you know, hear my voice. Maybe I'd make a good voice for like one of those annoying little whiny characters, a sidekick or something like that. All right, so Samantha does have a head, so we can just go ahead and custom head and throw that in there. And I do believe that it's only going to save this part of her head. I don't believe it'll save the whole thing. Come on, Samantha, hurry up. There we go. Samantha head. And then we can probably throw that on, what's the other girl's name here? I forget. She's not important. Kristen. Yeah, so we take Kristen and go to our content manager, custom. Oh, need to go to the head tab there, and Samantha head. I think it'll be a little bit big, but we'll see. Yep, it is quite big. All right, but there you go. So now there's your full body Samantha there, and you would want to change the layers and make her neck, her hip layer in front of the head, or the head below the hip layer. Right? Yeah. Talking heads. Now I got some talking head music in my head now. Oh yeah, the hairs need to go back there as well. She has a little slightly different structure. Where am I throwing this here? Yeah, there. Oh gosh. Okay. Where's her neck? Oh, yes. Why is the neck in front of the head? I don't know what's going on here. There we go. All right. Sometimes the layers can be a little bit tricky. Right. So there's Samantha, and what you'd want to do is what I did earlier by matching the body tone. You can really do that quickly and easily by launching in Photoshop. Let's get to the next question before I just kind of. You guys want to get back to your Netflix binging, don't you? Anyways, we'll take the female character and right here, we'll probably use that as a reference, and then make sure we go to our talking head center, and we need to go to the face image right here, which is this one, and pow, there you go. We'll just make sure, we'll just leave that eyeshadow on there, and then we'll save that. So we'll just pretend this is a light shade of eyeshadow. I don't want to mess around with the eyebrows. Okay, next question. There you go. We just kind of messed up the layers. Don't worry about it. We'll just leave her the way she is. Might fix it with itself anyways. Nope. We probably messed up with some masking and stuff, but we'll go to the next question. I don't want to kind of blabber on here. Next question from Constanza again. Oh, can I check the tutorials? Okay, great. Yeah, hopefully everyone can check out the tutorials because it goes into a lot more detail. So Jared asks for guidance to uploading your own characters like Gary Pie. A tutorial link, please. I'm on a Mac. I don't think we have a video tutorial for publishing stuff from Cartoon Animator 4. We just published one. I just published one on uploading content and publishing content for character creator and iClone. But for Cartoon Animator 4, since we don't have a smart gallery yet, you do have to go, you can probably go to the developer center, and it should be, all the stuff you need should be in here. Let's see, submission guide, I would imagine. Yeah, here you go. This is the one you want to take a look at, your submission guide for characters. And this will, it's been a while since this one's been updated. I'll throw this in the chat window as well. Okay, that should still be legitimate because I don't think we've updated the process. Yeah, there'll be a lot of stuff to read through here. And all this stuff can also be found in the white papers, I believe, as well. So, all right, hopefully it answers your question there. Brian asks, what is the benefit of the motions with a start, loop, and end? You know, basically just if you want to have a complete motion, like I mentioned, the idle motions or the characters regular, let's see how this character runs with 3 arms and a watermelon hand. Mission move. Like basically the start, the run start. Why is it? Okay, so the run start, we'll just take him from an idle position. Okay, so he's an idle position right now, and then he'll go to his loop motion here. Let's press F3 and make sure we're in the right frame there. No. And you can just have an end motion as well. Ooh, so he'll do like a fake start. So now he goes from idle. It's just basically to have your character return to the idle motion that they were at previously. So run and then whoop. Ooh, so much chaos going on in this scene. Okay, so that's basically the advantage of the start, loop, and end, just to return it back to the idle pose. Okay, so Daniel Stone asks, can you talk a little bit about file management? When you create a custom image, how can you move them into different folders or change their original folder? Also, do you have all of your content on the same drive as CTA4, or can I have the assets on a different drive or local area network? And will it slow the animation by doing so? A lot of questions. Also, is there a firm release date for hand movement like the teasers we've been seeing? Okay, well, we'll go to the first question first. Adjusting the content folder. Um, my computer, like many of you probably have the same issue. My main drive where Cartoon Animator 4 is installed and everything else is installed is a solid state drive, and it's fairly small. I think like 125 gigabytes or something like that, or I don't even know. But that fills up really quickly these days. Used to be you could fit a game on a floppy disk, but now we have 125 gigabytes, and it's not enough for. You can probably install like 3 programs and it's full. But you definitely do want to install your content on a separate folder if that's the case, like it is for me. So where my content is installed is on my separate drive. So if I go to like basically to find where your content is installed, you can go to any folder you really want, and you can right click the folder or right click any item and just go find file. Okay. And so you can see mine's installed on my D drive, which is my non-main drive. And it'll be under the Relusion folder, content, template, and CTA for template. Now, the way that you do this is when you install the program, it prompts you to select a folder for where you can install the content. All you do is just create a folder on your other drive, and it should be fine. That's what I do, and I highly recommend doing that. It doesn't affect the speed, like barely, if any. I've never noticed a difference. Yeah, so I'd highly recommend doing that. Putting all your content, especially if you have a ton of content, make sure you throw it on a separate drive, not your main drive, because it'll just eat up space. Excuse me. All right. Next question from Daniel here was, is there a firm release date for the hand movement, like all the teasers? So I believe you're talking about the hand motion capture using the Leap Motion controller. I've already been using that, and it's very, very soon. It should be within the next month or two, I believe. But there's not a firm release date for that yet, as far as I know. It's still working out a few of the smaller kinks, but it works fairly well, and we are going to be launching that within the next few months, I can safely say. But I can't give you a solid date, unfortunately, there, Daniel. Okay, that covers all those questions, I believe. Next question is from Cindy Jacobson. If you choose a run-in-place motion for your character, could you animate the scene to move like those old Fred Flintstone cartoons? Yeah, you could definitely do that as well. You could move the background, just like the old style cartoons. That's what they used to do back in the day. They would have the character run in place and they would move the backgrounds. You can definitely do that, Cindy. Just the process is basically the opposite. Instead of moving the character forward, you would just move the scene backwards. Okay, so we go to the next question, another one from Harry Goldhagen. What is the difference between Face Key Editor and Face Puppet? When would you use one and when would you use the other? I think I kind of covered that in my demonstration a little bit earlier. If you have more questions about it, feel free just to email me separately. I don't want to kind of be redundant and do it again, because this question is also from half an hour ago. So all right, let's get to the next one. How do you make the arm rotate or pivot not from the center? I did cover that, supposed to have covered that. So this arm should rotate. Not sure why it's not rotating from the center there. Yeah, it's really odd. Like I said, you should be able to go into composer mode here and change that pivot point to transform position there, because here this is what it's supposed to do, like that, and that's not what it seems to be doing. Yeah, but that's the way it should be responding. I'm not sure. I'll have to ask the tech team here and see if that's the way it's supposed to be or not, because it should be a simple solution like that, but it's not, for some reason, not transferring back to stage when it happens. So yeah, I'll have to get back to you on that that shenanigans there. Oh, I think right now, actually, oh, you know why it's rotating like this? Yeah, because I linked it to the chest bone, I believe. Let's try something else. Let's try, I just realized that I'm a dummy. Let's try linking it to the other bone here. Let's try linking it to this bone. That should work. Now, when we rotate it, it should. Nope. It's linking to the characters. Huh. Well, that's a pickle. Um, yeah, weird. All right, I'll have to look into that a bit more. Should be able to link to the specific bone too. I did link it to that. Oh, weird. Nope. Okay, we'll try and figure that out. Maybe it's because I have it animated or it's at a separate frame or something like that. Let's try. Nope. All right. I give up. That's the way it's supposed to go, though. I'll have to take a look at that a little bit more detail later. Brian Jensen's mentioning, are there mandatory parts required for your character? Well, as you can see, I have a bunch of mutated characters here. Mandatory is relative in this case. But yeah, that's all I can say. You do have to have a hip sprite at least, right? You have to have the main base bone. But in terms of characters, it's free reign, whatever you want to do with them. They are characters, not sentient, so you can basically do whatever you want to them. Hope they're not sentient. Oh gosh. All right. Anyways, the next question is from Trish Podell. Do the textures have to be flat? Photoshop has a lot of possibilities for deep textures. Yeah, unfortunately, right now they do have to be flat, Trish. So there's no options for the deep textures at this time. That may be something that we'll look at in the future, but yeah, currently that's the scenario that we're dealing with. So apologies for that. Okay, Jared asks, can you talk about sizing of artwork for custom characters? Do we need to make 4K resolution artwork in Photoshop to ensure 4K quality in Cartoon Animator 4 renders? Any quick insights when creating artwork for characters to be used in CTA 4? Yeah, so the standard size of the characters, if you just take your character into composer mode, you can see the standard size of the character. If you export it to Photoshop, it'll be 2819 by 3633. Okay, so that's the standard PSD resolution for your character. So yeah, generally you want to make sure you try and do it like 4K, but this is the official resolution of our template characters. Okay, although his hand is probably 3000K by itself. He's just got a massive hand. Yeah, that hopefully answers your question there. They're all standardized. They are all standardized in our library, so you can do what you want there. Okay, question from Nancy. I guess I answered a question from Nancy. Groovy. All right. Okay, so long to Philippe. And yeah, so Brian's asking why I added the background image as a prop instead of a image, or sorry, as a prop instead of a image layer. If you import it as, I'll show you what happens when you import an image as a background. It'll basically be stuck in this little blue square here. So let's go to take a quick look here. I'm going to just go to render image here, and I'm going to change my frame size to something like, let's go to widescreen. Okay. Notice that when I change the output size, the frame size here, this blue square will also change. That's going to be my output resolution, like this, 1080p, 4K. Okay, there's a notebook resolution. They're all slightly different. Not too much of a difference, but let's go to widescreen here, and you can just close this down. When I import this image file as a background, so if I take this lake and click and drag it in as a background, it'll basically conform to the shape of this blue outline, which kind of looks stupid because it's not meant for this purpose. So what you want to do is if you have your background needs to be the same dimensions as that as your settings. Okay, so when you go to render image, it has to be 1440 by 900, otherwise it'll look a little bit strange. And if you look at that image, it is oh, it doesn't show the resolution. This does it. Yes, 3067 by 1022. So obviously not ideal. It's not a match, as they say. Someone says that. Anyways, Daniel's next question here is: does the anchor point in Photoshop affect pivot? Yes, it does. The anchor point in Photoshop, these are all the points here. So these little bones here, and ooh, yeah, these bones need to be positioned in the correct place. I mean, I could try. Let's see if I take this, because this arm thing is bothering me. I know it's a simple solution, but let's try and take this into Photoshop maybe, and see what. Oh, the root. Yeah, see the roots in the correct position up there. So object pivot. Oh, here we go. Object pivot. Let's move this. Jabba dabba doo. There we go. Thankfully, we solved that problem. I hope. Let's save it and find out. Yeah, it should be the root, but I guess the object pivot is something that you have to modify as well, which is unfortunate, because if you don't have the pipeline version, you may not be able to edit that, I don't believe. So I thought it could be something that, let's take a look at it now. Yep, there we go, solved. All right. Thank you for pointing that out. Who was it here? I believe Daniel Stone. Yeah, thanks for pointing that out, because that's I haven't done that in a long time. I could swear that you could change the root position and modify it that way, but I guess now it's the pivot point. So there you go. Problem solved. He can do the windmill with his arm now. Okay, so we've solved that probably like 40 minutes into our Q&A session. Apologies for that, guys. All right, we got to the last question here. That is the last question. All right, so thanks so everyone so much for sticking with me for the last hour and 45 minutes on St. Patrick's Day. I know you all want to get back to drinking alone in your homes probably. Yeah, so thanks so much again, and we are going to be recording this. We are recording this. We'll send that out to you a little bit later on. And any feedback you have, please fill out the survey, and you get the big 10% discount from the content store. And yeah, I think that's about it. So if you're curious about if you got the animation bug and you want to learn more about animation, please attend our webinar on Thursday. I was going to say Saturday. It's Thursday. Trust me on that one. Attend the webinar on Thursday, same bat time, same bat channel. And we can learn all about the fun and wondrous world of animation. All right, so again, thanks so much, everyone. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever you are in the world. Stay safe out there. And yeah, happy St. Patty's Day. We'll see you on Thursday.